welcome to the Metal Voice. Today on the show, we are joined by Mr. Martin Popoff. What's going on, Martin?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me again. Very cool.
So this is what we're going to do today, guys. We're going to name our top Motorhead albums, 3 each.
Sure.
And then we'll talk a little bit about Lemmy. Martin, you could tell us about your experiences talking with the band, and of course talking with Lemmy, because you've talked to him a few times.
Yes.
So let us begin. Alan, I'll let you start off. Your top 3 Motorhead albums.
Well, we're going to take this one right off the charts. Okay, No Remorse, since it's a kind of a compilation. A greatest hits album? What?
I don't know if that counts, Alan. I don't know if that counts.
We're gonna take that right off, but that's a start for anybody that wants to start with Motorhead. That's definitely the one to go to.
Alan's cheating again.
Yeah, I am cheating. Yeah, for sure. I take advantage. Going back to one that was overlooked in the day because it was too commercial. I think Another Perfect Day for me is one of their strongest albums. I love Brian Robertson in the band. The musicianship stepped up, so that for me is one. And then this is a surprise. This might be a surprise for a lot. A little taster of what the new band was all about. Orgasmatron.
I am the
right
one.
here. I am the one. And they got Death Forever. Just that first opening song, you cannot sit still listening to something like that. And then I always like the Motorhead's, the albums that were a little bit different. So for me, 1916 was from the middle of the catalog, was a great album, especially the song itself. And then for the most recent ones, The World Is Yours, I think that's for one that stood out for me in the most recent years. So
thank you for that top 10 list, Alan. Martin, give us your top 3 Motorhead albums.
Okay, for my 3, I actually picked Another Perfect Day as my complete favorite. So good on you there, Alan. I mean, I always just really liked that the production picked up on this. I liked Robbo's guitar work. At the time it was looked upon as a bit too much of a departure, a bit too musical. I didn't think it was too musical. I thought it was essentially just good, solid songwriting, and it was Motorhead enough for me. And I think Lemmy's lyrics are really good on it as well. A real dark horse that a lot of fans like a lot is Bastards, which didn't get very good distribution. Mine's on Zix Music, ZYX. This was actually the first good, heavy, dark, gritty one after those Sony years where they got a little bit corporate with their sound. So this is one that was quite hard to find, but it was a welcome return for them. And again, Alan, I oddly went with the same new one as you. The World Is Yours. We have a lot of debates, me and a bunch of buddies, about how I personally think all of Motorhead's last albums are great, and I may even like them or even get more value out of them than the early ones, because I think Lemmy's just such a strong lyricist, and he just always got better all the time. But this is one that I've played a lot of, but like I say, I mean, all the last Motorhead albums I'm perfectly happy with. But this one is definitely a regular in my jogging repertoire on my iPod. So that's it. I mean, I basically went through, went to all the eras. I purposely didn't want to pick something too early. If I had to pick an early one, I really do have a soft spot for Bomber. On to you, Jimmy. What are yours?
So, of course, the classic. Nobody mentioned the Ace of Spades. Maybe because it's a given. I don't know. But to me, it's like start to finish. It defines who Motorhead is, and we judge, like we talked about this before in the past, we judge Motorhead based on Ace of Spades, right? Anyways, that's one of my favorite albums. And just like you, Martin, just like you, Bastards. I don't know, there's something about this album. Maybe it's just a very catchy, melodic album. I Am the Sword being probably one of my favorite Motorhead songs ever. There's just something about this album, and you're right, it's very difficult to find. I did find it. I bought it, and I'm very pleased, and I think everybody should check out Bastards. And they have just so many great albums, guys. And the last one is, I think it's their second to last album of their career. It's Aftershock. Again, there's just something so great about this album. It got such a great rating. Even The World Is Yours, like Alan and yourself seem to love so much, but I think Aftershock is just a little bit better. So there you have it, guys.
We're mourning, of course, the death of Lemmy, and it's a little sad for a band, that he's been referred to as a heavy metal icon, and of course everybody only refers to the song Ace of Spades. I mean, Lemmy, like you said, was a great lyricist, a great sense of humor. You know, whenever I'm feeling a bit down, I'll go get his autobiography, White Line Fever, and that always brings a smile on my face. And for a band to start every concert, we are Motorhead, we play rock and roll. You know, to just catchphrase him in the Godfather of heavy metal or whatever. It's a little disappointing for me.
What about you, Martin? I mean, you've interviewed him a few times.
Yeah.
Well, what's your impression? I mean, how do you feel?
Well, it was only a couple of days ago, and I heard about it. A few guys Facebooked me, but listening to the sports shows, we were just down in Detroit and we saw an NFL and a college game, and people were referencing it on sports radio and even TV shows on ESPN and whatnot. Lemmy had a lot of reach. Everybody knew who Lemmy was. He had that distinctive look about him. He just represented the outlaw version of rock and roll, of heavy metal. So I think he attained something by the end that went beyond just knowing about Ace of Spades. He just became a cultural icon, essentially like an Ozzy Osbourne or an Alice Cooper. So yeah, it's very sad to see. I mean, I may have a Motorhead book in myself because I've basically interviewed him and Fast Eddie and Phil. Phil just died a couple or 3 months ago as well, and he was a great guy and a good interview, and also Fast Eddie is a great interview. In fact, Fast Eddie is he's now obviously left to be the spokesman for the classic lineup at this point. But I've interviewed those guys many times. It was always a cool time when Lemmy came to town and brought the band to town. There was a buzz about the air, no matter how big your city is. Here in Toronto, he was a sociable guy. He'd meet you. He'd always say, if you're in a phone interview with him and they were coming to town, eventually he'd say, yeah, we'll have a beer together when you get here. And he meant it. I'm sure he said that to everybody, but he was accessible, and he would meet with you and he'd take pictures with you, and you'd have to give the finger and stuff, and so I've got pictures of myself with him and met him many times, and the other guys, Mickey and Phil, they basically almost picked up the personality and the gregariousness of Fast Eddie and Phil before. They were great spokesmen for the band. So that's the other loss in this whole situation, is that we lose a great band. We lose a band who's been putting out great albums regularly all the time, and now those guys are going to have to retire or find other employment or do something, because there is no more Motorhead.
And just recently, I was just reading up on Miles Goodwin from April Wine, and April Wine is going to continue without Miles Goodwin.
With his permission.
With his permission. It's kind of very similar to Lemmy. Dio is continuing without Dio, right? The last in line. You're getting so many bands who either they retired or they passed away. Martin, do you think it's a good idea that the band continues without Lemmy? I personally don't think it's a good idea. I don't think Lemmy is replaceable, just like Dio isn't replaceable. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think of those three examples, April Wine makes the most sense because other guys have sung in the band and written in the band, and it's a big band. So that one is not so ludicrous. And then Dio, they basically became the last in line. But let's not forget, Dio was a 4 and a 5 piece band, and all those guys are there, and all those parts are there, and they're all contributing. They all have very distinctive sounds to what they add to it. Motorhead's, I think it's just a crazy idea. It makes no sense at all. I haven't heard anybody really talk about how that could ever happen. But if we want to look at the question seriously, what I would say is, A, it's a 3-piece. B, they're kind of like a dirty punk band in a lot of ways, which means all their performances are muted down. I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine the other day. It's like when you come back as the Stooges. You're walking into a trap because you're making simple, primitive music, and now you're asked to do that again and recapture the magic of Raw Power or Funhouse. It makes no sense. It's hard to do and not be critically slammed for it. Motorhead's got a little bit of that problem. Obviously, the big problem is the lead vocalist of every song is gone. The front man of every song is gone, and that great lyricist is gone, and the guy who made that bass sound is gone. So Motorhead is and Phil and Mickey wouldn't dispute that. Lemmy is 85% of Motorhead. Phil or Mickey, neither of them really have this trade thing that is Motorhead, this sound that is Motorhead, even the way that a Viv Campbell does, or even a Vinny Appice for that matter, is allowed to do in Dio and Last in Line or whatever they're, the way they're moving forward.
Final thoughts, Al?
No, I agree with Martin. I mean, let's face it. Lemmy was larger than life. He touched all aspects. I mean, I had my father calling me to give me my condolences, and that's you know what I mean. Lemmy was Lemmy was, and so the only parallel, the closest I think comes to it is the reformation of Thin Lizzy after Phil Lynot's death.
Yeah.
But that was years later. But again, Phil might have been. Arguably 40-50% of that band. Martin said it very well. Lemmy was Motorhead. It's as simple as that. And no disrespect to Phil or Mickey or anybody else that played. Let's face it. Like you said, the voice, the bass playing, and nobody plays bass like that. So he was Motorhead. Time will tell. We've seen funnier things happen, but I think this one's going to be very difficult to come back in any form.
No,
I mean, Quiet Riot did it. I mean, there's no original members of Quiet Riot.
We're not talking.
But hold on a sec. I mean, the premise of it is keeping the music alive, and people who want to relive the Motorhead experience. I mean, it might not necessarily be a bad idea in years to come. I personally don't think they should do it, but I could see tribute bands coming out playing Motorhead with some of the original band members, or at least the classic. I mean, Fast Eddie Clarke might be there one day. I don't know. Mickey D, I wouldn't consider him.
Let's say, for argument's sake, off the top of my head, what might be a pretty decent idea is something a little bit like Last in Line, where you change the name, you have Phil and you have Mickey, and you have this band that's Motorhead-like, and you get somebody who's nearly as big as an icon as Lemmy into the band, and you move forward, and then because Jimmy, the thing you said, which was interesting, keeping the songs alive, keeping the music alive, then what you have is a band that goes out, it's a totally different band, but half the set list could be Motorhead songs.
You just described Black Star Riders.
I'm just saying it's happening today. I personally don't agree with it, but it's happening today. We can't avoid it. People want to work, and club owners, they want to book brand names, right? Yeah. That's where the money is at the end of the day. Now, I want to ask everybody out there, what do you think? Should Motorhead continue without Lemmy? Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Should they do it for the music, or is this just a cash in and it's just a money grab? So tell us what you think. Guys, thanks for this wonderful debate that we didn't even know we were going to get into.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching another edition of The Metal Voice, our top albums of Motorhead, and the debate, should Motorhead continue without Lemmy?